Maria's hands moved like memories over the worn dough. In the heart of Madrid, tucked between cracked walls and bullet-scarred alleys, stood a small bakery. Its faded sin read, "Pan de Esperanza, bread of hope." It was run by Maria Alvarez, a war widow with tired eyes but hands that still worked magic with flour and fire. Every morning before sunrise, Maria would knead dough with silent prayers for peace, for her son, and for the people who lined up at her door. Her husband, Francisco, had died in the Civil War. Her only son, Emiliano, never returned from the Eastern Front, conscripted into a war that was not theirs. Though rations were scarce, Maria found ways to stretch what little she had. A touch of olive oil, a sprinkle of rosemary from the garden. She fed soldiers, orphans, and anyone who walked through her door with empty hands. One cold morning, Maria found a stranger waiting outside. He wore a tattered coat and had a limp, but his eyes looked familiar. Maria dropped the basket of bread in her hands. "Emiliano," she whispered. The man nodded slowly. Emiliano had walked for weeks across borders, deserts of snow, and ruins of forgotten towns. He had escaped from a Soviet labor camp after years of silence. His body bore scars, but his spirit still smelled of home, of warm bread and rosemary. Maria didn't ask questions. She simply made a fresh loaf, sliced it, and placed it in Emiliano's trembling hands. They sat in silence, both knowing the war had taken too much. But not everything. Word spread through the neighborhood. "El Hijo de Maria has returned." People came not just for the bread, but to see the boy who came back from the dead. Emiliano began baking beside his mother, learning the rhythm of peace. Every loaf he shaped was a prayer. Every crust he browned was forgiveness. And every customer he smiled at was a reminder that life could begin again. One evening, as the sky turned orange behind the chimneys of Madrid, Maria looked at Emiliano and whispered, "You came back not just to me, but to life." And for the first time in years, Maria's laughter returned, rising above the clatter of pans and the whisper of bread rising in the oven. But peace, like dough, is fragile. Whispers of the secret police returned curious about Emiliano's escape. One morning, a black car parked across the street. Maria noticed and tightened her apron. Emiliano, sensing danger, began waking earlier, delivering bread before sunrise, avoiding attention. He smiled for the village, but his eyes searched shadows. He had returned, yes, but the war had returned with him. Maria made a decision. If war was knocking again, she'd face it the way she always had, with bread, with kindness, and with quiet defiance. One night, the black car was gone, and in its place, a bouquet of wildflowers tied to the bakery door. No note, no signature, just silence, and a sunrise full of... And so, the ovens stayed hot. The smell of rosemary filled the air. And every morning, Maria and Emiliano opened their doors not just to customers, but to hope. Warm bread in a cold war. But history has its own hunger. The Cold War crept back through the cracks of peace, whispers of spies, disappearances, and silence. Emiliano began writing letters again this time. Not to escape, but to warn others. Maria baked more than bread now. She wrapped messages in crusty loaves, passed them quietly to resistance hands. Every baguette a whisper, every pie a protest. The bakery became more than a shop. It was a lifeline. Locals came for food and found a courage. Children learned the code. 2 taps on the counter meant safe. 3 taps meant danger. One day, the men in black coats returned. They didn't speak. They just stood, eyes scanning the loaves, the walls, the faces. But Maria only offered them fresh bread and a warm, unwavering stare. That evening, as the sun set behind the bell tower, the bakery door locked early. Inside, Maria whispered, "I bake at dawn At dawn, the bakery was alive again, not just with the scent of dough rising, but with quiet defiance. People queued not only for food, but for hope baked into every crust. The soldiers returned, but they never found the truth. Because the resistance wasn't hidden in weapons, it was kneaded into dough and sealed inside the kindness of a woman who never stopped baking. Years pass. The war didn't end with flags and cheers. It ended with people choosing to live, love, and share again. And Maria's bakery never once closed its doors. The bells chimed noon as a young girl skipped through the bakery's doors. She held out a drawing, her face smudged with flour. "For you, Senora," she said, offering the picture of a woman kneading dough. Maria's eyes glistened. It was the only portrait of herself she'd ever seen. Gently, she took the drawing and placed it beside the cash register. "This will keep me company," she said, smiling. The girl beamed and skipped away, leaving the bakery aglow with afternoon light. Maria sighed contentedly. Her life wasn't measured in years, but in loavist. Each crease in her hands was a story, each smile a chapter. The bakery wasn't just a business, it was her diary. And every morning, when the sun touched the chimney, she wrote another page, one crust at a time. Outside, Madrid bustled with life. Poets argued in cafes, artists painted on sun-drenched plazas, and lovers whispered beneath ancient trees. But inside the bakery, time slowed to the rhythm of kneading dough. Here, life was simpler, warmer, sweeter. As Maria kneaded the dough, she hummed a tuneless song, lost in the ancient dance of flour and water. The rhythmic thump of her hands was a lullaby, a melody that spoke of generations of bakers before her. Each fold, each turn was a prayer, a whisper of hope in the stillness of dawn. The bakery's windows, like watchful eyes, saw the changing seasons, the shifting moods of the city. Winter's icy breath, spring's tender touch, summer's languid gaze, and autumn's fiery fair. The bakery stood steadfast, a beacon of warmth and constancy. The clink of the bell above the door announced a customer. Maria looked up, her face creased in a perpetual smile. Over the years, this smile had become a most treasured possession. It was a smile that had fed not just bodies, but souls. Maria's smile was an affirmation of life in the face of adversity, a silent rebellion against the darkness that had tried to snuff out the flame of humanity. The customer stepped in, his face etched with the hardships of the times. But as he approached the counter, a faint smile touched his lips, mirroring Maria's own. In that shared smile, there was recognition, solace, and the promise of a better day. For in this small bakery, amidst the rising dough and the aroma of fresh bread, people found more than sustenance. They found a community, a testament to the enduring spirit of humanity.